I'll tell you what, guys, I have not felt like that for a long, long time. Manchester United have not done that for me for a long, long time. Few and far between. We've had some great wins over the last year or so. The Lyon game, the Liverpool game, but what we've wanted out of Manchester United for so long now is, I keep saying it, something to believe in, a United we can identify with. And that is exactly what we got out of Manchester United in the Manchester Derby. I feel as though I've been carrying this feeling of dread on my shoulders, like every time going into every single match. But ahead of this Manchester Derby today, I did not know what to expect at all. I thought United could put out a performance like that. They could have lost 3-0. But I didn't know. And Michael Carrick has talked a lot about how Old Trafford can be magic and the feeling that you have to recapture. It's there. It's waiting to be taken. And the noise at Old Trafford today, the feeling, the commitment from the players from the very, very, very beginning of the game, everything aligned today against Manchester City. City nearly-ish out of the title race now, but that's not of our concern at the moment. We need to focus on getting back to those conversations, but only we are able to start back on that path. The only way we can is by building a foundation and identifying with what Manchester United should be and putting that out there, not only against Manchester City, not only against Arsenal next weekend, but against Fulham in a few weeks' time, against teams that are going to come and sit in and try and frustrate United. That level of commitment and that level of, not emotion, the emotion will change depending on the fixture, but United need to bring with them fight and ambition and combine that with a tactical masterclass. It was brilliant. Everything about this day today was absolutely fantastic. I am delighted. I feel as though that weight, that frustration, it's just been exercised out of me. It's so weird to say it, but it's just been lifted out of me. It's crazy to think that. And look, I'm not getting carried away. I'm not saying that United are going to be fixed and everything's going to be fine, but it's just so nice to just watch Manchester United. They absolutely smashed Manchester City today. Absolutely smashed them. Every department in defense, defending against Erling Haaland, who was absolutely anonymous. He did not get to carry Licha Martinez in his pocket or under his arm down the street like a little kid, like Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt were saying on their podcast earlier this week. Instead, he kept him anonymous. Brilliant to see. Harry Maguire coming back in and 3 days training in 8 weeks, according to Michael Carrick, putting in a colossal performance. Everybody was brilliant. Kobbie Mainoo back in midfield, just turned Semenyo. And you just know that there's so much more to expect and that we can get out of all these players. Casemiro, I think, got player of the match as well. They were all absolutely imperative, and the attack was just absolutely deadly. It should have been 4. It should have been 5, honestly. And how often do we get able, or are we able to say that Manchester United wholeheartedly, without any question, without any shred of doubt, how often do we get to say that United deserved to win that game and they blew a superior team away? Like, United they've beaten City before, but they've hung in there, and they did hang in there for a little bit today, but on the weight of chances, how many disallowed goals were there? 3 or 2? Crazy stuff. The performance was absolutely fantastic, but I just want to start the podcast today. Sorry, it's not a usual intro on this pod, but I just think it's so nice. So nice to just feel as though you can identify with a Manchester United team again. And for everything that's happened with managers and head coaches and disagreements about systems and that kind of thing, what we've all needed is something like that. Something to build on, something to believe in. And Michael Carrick has come in, and within 3 days, he and his coaching staff have put together a performance we can all identify with. And absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. And I tweeted it earlier before I started the pod. I said, do I have to be never too high now? And look, I will, I'm sure over the course of the next few days, I will talk about like how it's really imperative and important to bring that level into every single game. But the fact that it's still there, and Michael Carrick has shown in a few days that he can tap into it and the players can give a performance like that, it's an encouraging start. It's a brilliant start. I didn't imagine it would go that way, but I knew that United were capable of it, and it was an absolutely wonderful watch. Fantastic. Manchester City 2-0 defeat at Old Trafford. Manchester United 2, Manchester City 0. And let's be honest, it could have been 4, it could have been 5, and I know I've already said that, but I'm just absolutely delighted with that. Subscribe to the podcast if you've not done so already, where the approach is never too high, never too low. It's usually never too low. Hopefully, we can have a good few months ahead of us. If they go into games like that and approach it like that, they will win a lot more games. And we'll be talking about things potentially changing. But you can't get carried away. Subscribe to the podcast anyway, is what I was just saying. Follow me on social at _ Scott Saunders as well. Apple, Spotify, all of those different places. YouTube as well is where you can find the podcast. I would really appreciate your support, your likes, your 5-star reviews, your comments. Get in the comments. Please let me know how you're feeling. If you're at Old Trafford, I think a couple of you have sent me videos of you celebrating at Old Trafford today. If you went to the match, just send me a video or something like that. I wasn't there, obviously, but it was just looked fantastic. Absolutely amazing. And that's what we need to recapture. So, look, it's good, isn't it? And now we go into another week. That the best thing, right, about I think that Saturday 12:30 is the best and worst, because you can go into a football weekend, and if you win it in a big game, it sets your weekend up absolutely brilliantly, and you can just enjoy watching the rest of the football. You can not watch any more football at all, and you can just go and move on or whatever. And if you lose it, sometimes it can be the worst thing. But you know, United going into a big game today against a Manchester City team that was second best all over the pitch. I haven't had one of these weekends for a long time. You know, I think United beat City in this time slot when Marcus Rashford scored a late winner for 2-1 under Erik ten Hag a few years ago. I think it was a 12:30 slot. But God, these moments are few and far between, aren't they? Like, think of how often we felt like this, and how often it's been just absolutely miserable the whole time. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. United don't play until next Sunday. You've got a full week to just revel in that. And the conversation, the picture changes. I spoke last week on the podcast. I was saying, look, think of how miserable we were on Thursday or Friday last week, like 2 days ago, with the upheaval and with the disputes between, even amongst the fan base, right? I said last week, I remember saying it 2 days ago. Imagine United go and pull one out of the bag against City, and imagine how the conversation changes. Well, now the conversation has changed, and it's absolutely superb. I have a lot of flowers to give out, virtual flowers, or flowers by the sounds of words. I don't know what I'm saying. But look, I'll start with the players, I think, because outside of, look, Diogo Dalot could have got, on another day, he could have got sent off. He was lucky, I think, but I understand why it wasn't given. I understand that, look, maybe if that came 60 minutes into the game, maybe he would have gone. But the brush over the knee with his studs, it wasn't good to see. And I did have that fear at that point that it might have been a red card. He gave the ball away once or twice, but overall, I know I criticized Dalot a lot, but I think overall, the fact that he pretty much kept Doku in his pocket for most of the game. Same on the other side, Semenyo as well. I think City really missed a trick not instructing their wide players to go and beat Dalot and Shaw down the wings. Like, they often just turned the ball back in and kept possession, retained it, when you got two players there who really can be very good one-on-one. And United utilised that with the second goal that they scored. Cunha got around Nico O'Reilly, I think it was, put a ball into the back post. Cunha, just like that, is the perfect placement. Dorgu gets ahead of his man and scores with a brilliant finish. I was surprised City didn't go that way and be a little bit more adventurous. But that's on City. United dealt with everything that they threw at them. Everything. And every single player, I speak on this podcast all the time about how these players need to put their best feet forward and show their best selves, right? And that's half the thing. everything that I say on this podcast generally has been looking at attitude and looking at commitment, going into 50-50s and trying to win them, winning second balls, wanting, like, showing that you want it more than the other team. And no question about it today, Manchester United wanted it more than Manchester City. Manchester United, every player to a man, wanted it more than their opponent. They did. And that goes a long way. That's the foundation of everything. And Michael Carrick has managed to, I think he said in his post-match that he felt that the emotion was there and the players felt like they owed a good performance and a big win to the fans. If anything, he was worried that that emotion would kind of spill over into something negative and they'd take it too far. It wasn't. The mix was perfect. Even early on, Luke Shaw got a booking as well as Dalot. And you think, oh, that's like 80-odd minutes, 70-odd minutes where both your fullbacks are on yellow cards against Semenyo and Doku. And they're two players really that can give you a real problem. But I felt like United got the line exactly right. It was a derby. You want that bit of needle in it. It boiled over a few times, like once or twice. It boiled over. And I'm just like recording the podcast now, and I've just seen that Liverpool have dropped points at home to Burnley. 1-1. Absolutely fantastic stuff. How many times have I said absolutely fantastic? Tottenham and West Ham are still going as well. Chelsea are going to win, but this puts United now at fifth in the league. They were fourth going into the day, but Liverpool had an opportunity to go and beat Burnley, and they failed to do it. Picture changes completely. United are fifth, and they won't be surpassed. Well, they may be by Newcastle if they win. Maybe. So they could end the weekend sixth, right? But look, I think the important thing, I went off piste a little bit there, but the important thing for me was that United took the right approach to the game. It was an instruction, I'm sure, by Michael Carrick and his coaches that you need to show your best selves. And every single player, to a man, gave me what I've wanted to see that out of Manchester United's players and their first team for so long. Like, proving that they wanted to win more than the other team. That was a big foundational element of this. Every single player was brilliant. Every player, even Diogo Dalot, who had a bit of a nightmare start and gave the ball away on the edge of his own box at one point. I felt like they were the moments where it got me a little bit worried, but generally, I think he did really well. Every player did so well, and the approach that they all took is the approach that I wanted to see out of them for God knows how long. God knows how long. Perfect application, great performance. And what it brought us, and I'll go into the tactical side of this as well with Michael Carrick and his coaches in a little bit, but it reminded me, there's been a lot of talk about United DNA and playing the United way. And United can't go into matches in the next 16 weeks every time and have, I don't know what the amount of possession that it actually was in the end. I'm just going to check that now. But it wasn't massive, was it? It was 32% possession, according to Live Score, that United had. United can't get by every week like that. But the performance did have hallmarks of what you would call the Manchester United we know. And I've talked about the application. I've talked about, like, they flew into challenges at some points. Even Luke Shaw, I think he got his booking, like I've just said, snapped into a tackle. It wasn't high or anything, but it was a yellow card, and you just worry. But you worried that it might come back to haunt him later. But you need to show a bit of force and, like, bring a bit of spice with you on Derby Day as well. And I think every player did it brilliantly. But I feel like just talking about that's your foundation, right? The United DNA that we've been talking about. We want to see flying wingers. We want to see players taking on their man. We want to see full commitment across the course of the game. We want to see exhilarating. I love counter-attack goals. I love them. I love them. And what we got with that first goal was a Man City free kick, a turnover. Brian Mbeumo just lofts it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup. in terms of how it came about. Remember the extra time goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup that Ahmad scored? Because Mbumo flicked it over his man, and then all you see in that moment, I think it was Garnacho and Ahmad in a 2-on-1 against the Liverpool defender. This time it was 4-on-2. Just one little movement. Mbumo, good feet, gives it to Bruno Fernandes, I think, or Bruno Fernandes carries it into the final third. And it's so, you can identify with it so much, because that counter-attack is, I've seen United do that for years and years and years. That's what we love to see. That's what we got. That's how the deadlock was broken. And everything about that goal was brilliant. The transition, and this was, you could see that this was the plan from the very beginning of the game. It can't be the approach all the time, and United will need to stamp their authority on games by dominating territory and possession and pinning teams in and beating low blocks and that kind of thing. But against Manchester City, the best approach for me is always to play the way that they played. And Michael Carrick has been in there with Jose Mourinho and with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has had the best record, I think, of anybody really, individually, against Pep Guardiola. He got the better of him a lot, and Michael Carrick was on the coaching staff instructing the team for around a lot of those wins. And City, while they've changed, their styles changed and their personnel have changed, they're probably a lot more physical a team nowadays. The way to beat Pep Guardiola is the same. Two banks of four, like compact the spaces, make them really work for it, force them wide if you have to, and try and bat away crosses, and you can find the space on the break. How it was basically two banks of four, and then Bruno and Bryan Mbumo like through the middle, but split at either side of Rodri, and they couldn't deal with it. Could not deal with it at all. And I've just spoken there about how Manchester City are now this like physical, different animal physically. All day. Like, I have so many concerns, like, generally about United and how they often get dominated physically. How many times have I spoke about that? Today, not the case at all. Not the case at all. And maybe that's fair on Michael Carrick and his coaching staff for instructing them to just condense the spaces, keep tight, and use your opportunities to spring away. And you could see what the plan was through the entire day. I think he got it spot on, Michael Carrick. You can see what the plan was. The transition. We know that United have been generally over the last few years a transition team at its core, and that's not the team that we want them or need them to be down the line, like in its finished form. You will need that element of transition, though, always, because that's a hallmark of what Manchester United are. It's just they can't be that team. They need to evolve to a certain point. But that was the plan throughout the entire day. Try and keep it tight. City will have a lot of the ball, but you win it back. You pass it out of danger a couple of times, and then you spring. And so many opportunities throughout the first half where I think Ahmad had a disallowed goal, didn't he? And Bruno had a disallowed goal as well, 2 for offside. And in the first half, so it actually was 3 disallowed goals with the goal at the end that Mason Mount scored. Crazy. Think that's crazy. 3 disallowed goals. Honestly. But the plan was clear, and you could see it working throughout. Bryan Mbumo got the nod through the middle, and it was quite unlucky on Benjamin Sesko's part, I suppose, given he scored 3 goals in his last 2. But I could see the sense in it. I could see the sense in Patrick Dorgu starting out left. I thought he was brilliant, by the way. Big moment for him scoring a goal, but I thought he was brilliant in general. And I think the balance that Carrick approached the game with and the coaches approached the game with was the right one. Like, you'd expect that Cunha's not been in great form recently, but you'd have expected him to start, and I did. And the one bad thing about my day was that Patrick Dorgu is in my fantasy team, but I put him down to 3rd sub because I didn't think that he'd start or get really any minutes in the game, especially on the left wing and especially scoring a goal. I didn't expect that to happen. But, that's the downside of today for me. But I'll take that because United were perfect, to be honest. I think the approach was spot on. You could see it time and again where the pass was on all the time, Bryan Mbumo would try and identify a bit of space, between the fullback and the centre back, or the two centre backs. Find that space, and United were like one pass or two passes away so many occasions, and City played that high line, and United rinsed it over and over and over again. It's naive from Pep, but you know that that's how you can go about beating them generally, because he's not going to veer away too much from what he sees as his pure ideal of football. United exploited it sometimes throughout the first half. I know they had those two disallowed goals. Just the pass wasn't right, or the timing on the run from the pass wasn't right, and it was offside a couple of times. But the way that United built it through, the way that they transitioned it, whether that was a switch from one side to the other or a couple of passes out, it was so obvious to see what the plans were. And I know a lot of you who've listened to the pod just have been asking for a platform for these players to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. Yes, like that is exactly what we got out of this team today. That's exactly what Michael Carrick did. And he spoke about it a lot. He wants to ensure and try to make these players better, improve these players. And that's all he's talked about all week. That's his job. And in 3 days, 3 days work for that. Unbelievable, really. It is so refreshing to see that United, who didn't have a ton of possession, absolutely peppered City. And was it not for Donnarumma or for some marginal offside goals, this would have been a heavy win for United. I think the XG that United had was about 3.68. I've seen Man City's heaviest XG defeat in the Premier League. I think that's what one of that XG philosophy account put out. I have no idea whether that's legit or not, but absolutely worked perfectly. And I think you always had that fear in you for as long as United didn't score. You always had that fear that United didn't take their chances. And then City would potentially go and nick one at the end, because that's often the story. If you don't take the chances that you've had, then generally there could be a sting in the tail at some points. And that was how I was kind of feeling as the game was going on, even though United were getting all the chances and City weren't really having any. You just had that fear. And I got more nervous as the game went on. I kind of went into the game thinking, well, I don't know what to expect here. I wasn't really that nervous for the game going in because I didn't know what to expect. But what I did feel throughout it was a lift, a bit of freshness, a keenness to try and understand what Michael Carrick's going to do, because I knew exactly how Ruben Amorim may have got into this game if he was still in charge and may have got a win out of this somehow, but you knew exactly how the team were going to set up and you knew what you were going to see. And I was kind of just numb to it, for a while, thinking, no, this is kind of how it is. This is what we've got, and this isn't going to change until X date, or until X player leaves, or until X player comes in, or something like that. Whereas now what we've got is, and this is a question that we do need to look. It's all good. Like today was brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But there will come a time where United do need to, they can't chop and change for each game. You will need to know exactly what you're getting out of this Manchester United team in the games moving forward. But I think against City and against Arsenal, you can afford to sit off, and you can afford to, play to players' strengths and sit in and defend deep and make sure that, you don't take risks at the wrong moments. But it was an approach that I think worked a treat. It really did. And you kind of get that feeling, or at least I had that feeling, really. I talked about how I wasn't really nervous going into it because I didn't know what I was going to see out of United. But the longer the game went on and the more chances the United had, and the more they looked better throughout the entire game, right? They were better throughout the entire game. But the longer it went on, the more nervous I got until United scored, because I thought, is it going to be one of those days where United put in a really good performance, have lots of chances, and then in the end don't see it through in the end and get that sting in the tail? That was what I was worried about, and that's why I got more nervous as the game went on. But when that first goal went in, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Just just gone, disappeared out of my body. That all that like angst you've been carrying for ages, in a moment or two, just lifted. You still had that uncertainty about what would happen next, and you know that United are fallible from like winning positions. But the second goal came about. The change was made. Brian Mbeumo, who ran his socks off. It's a lot of ground to cover when you play that transition game, and so many opportunities come about for you. I think a lot of the players on the pitch looked like they were knackered. Like, I got to be honest. And Mbeumo put in a really good shift. He's had a busy week, obviously playing at AFCON and flying back and getting adjusted to, and Ahmad as well, getting adjusted to a football club and a setup that they knew 3-4 weeks ago, to a completely different setup and personnel that are in charge of the team now this week. It's a big change for them. But I thought Mbeumo was brilliant. The way that he took his goal justified the selection for me. I think the fact that I've already touched on Sesko, he didn't get any minutes today, I don't think, did he? But for me, I could see the sense in it. I think I could see, if you want to play off him, or if you want to offer that threat in behind, Sesko could probably do that. But I think Sesko's not entirely well-rounded at the moment. If you want to play the ball into feet or whatever, then sometimes, the ball can bounce off him, and like there's improvements to be made there. But he's also a good substitute to bring on in reserve. And the good thing is, now, after all those injuries and all those absences just a few weeks ago, seems to have cleared up completely. And Matthias de Ligt and Mazraoui, I think, are the two that are missing at the moment. But hopefully brighter times are ahead. Now United's bench looked a hell of a lot stronger than it had just a few weeks ago. But Mbeumo took the chance that he had brilliantly. Played in by Bruno, brilliant way to the pass. Mbeumo was the one that turned the ball over and set up the counter-attack in the first place. It takes a lot of lungs, to cover that much ground and sprint it out. And to keep your composure like that at the end against a goalkeeper that had made some miraculous saves. The double save that he made with Casemiro, where he somehow tried to chip it over him and it hit Donnarumma's leg. You're tearing your hair at that point and thinking, they deserve to be in front so much, but just not taking their chances. And just a few minutes later, then they did take that chance. And I was so happy with that. And then to go on and score the second goal so soon after, I think it was about 12 minutes or something like that between the two goals, just settled the nerves a lot. And it was no less than United deserved. If anything, I was incredibly gutted, actually, that Mason Mount goal was ruled out at the end, because it was just, a toe that Cunha was offside by. Frustrating in the end, but overall, I think United deserved entirely and thoroughly to win that game. And I think the job that everybody did, the approach that was taken, you just have to applaud it. It was fantastic, and it made me feel like there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. I said a couple of days ago, this is not the lowest I've ever felt, because I ultimately do, and I'll still say this, I do still think that United are trending in a direction which isn't just, the ends of the earth. I think this is a United team that have a plan. And as much as I did think that they threw that plan out the window a few days ago, if you can put performances like this together and consistently do them, that's the big challenge here over the course of the next few weeks and few months. 16 games left to go. That's the challenge. If you can do that, and you can build a sense of togetherness, and you can bring the fans back on side and give people something to believe in, then more players will want to join. You could potentially, that Champions League football, if you play like this, Champions League this season is not far away at all. Whether they sign a midfielder or not, Casemiro was brilliant today. Kobe was brilliant today. Even Mamadou Ugarte came on and did his bit. There's options in there. If they can stay injury-free, there's weeks between matches. They'll be prepared. That physical element that I talked about is it should be a big part of United's game, but the fact that you're going to need, or there's going to be a lot of teams who are in European competition, like Arsenal go to Inter, I think, in midweek now, and then play United at home next weekend. United now have a full stretch of an entire week to not only prepare for that game, but recover for that game as well. I've talked about that being an advantage a lot. We've just not seen it over the course of the season so far. Hopefully, with a different approach and different coaches now, they can lean into that a bit more, and we can get more performances like that out of United moving forward. Look, I'm not fooled by today. And in the interest of never too high, never too low, like this doesn't really mean anything because we've been let down many, many times before. When I say mean anything, it doesn't mean anything in the sense of where United are going long term. It means a lot for today, obviously, and it means a lot for people to get behind the team. But that needs to be backed up. I know that. I know that the approach, I've already had some replies to me saying on social media that that approach isn't sustainable. I'm like, come on, guys, give it a rest. Like, let's talk about this another day. Just enjoy the moment. I certainly have been enjoying the moment anyway. I've had a beaming smile on my face for the duration of the day since that went by. And I've touched on Carrick and the approach, but I think special mention for him towards the end, because what he's done over the course of the last 3 days is managed to bring these players together and bring the crowd on side. It went hand in hand today. And I think the approach that he took, the messaging that he's been putting out there is exactly what United have needed at this point. So look, I'm not saying this is going to continue forever, but it's a really good start. And Michael Carrick deserves a lot of credit for the way that the team was set up. It is that's the way to beat Manchester City. And they just did it again. And it should have been a lot more, should have been more. And I'm delighted. I really am. And I just want to say this as well before I shoot off and let you enjoy your weekend or your week or whenever you're listening to this. Do enjoy it, by the way, because United don't often give you moments like this. Enjoy it. There's a big job to do, I know, still, but that's something we can maybe look forward to happening over the course of the next few months now. It doesn't always have to be miserable all the time. Tottenham have lost today, by the way, as well, to West Ham. Unbelievable. So United are right in that mix for top 4 and top 5. And I think I just a final point here. A few of you have tweeted me back on social talking about how that made you feel and how Rob would have loved that. And I thought, yeah, man, he would have been really, really, really proud of that. Like, I'm sure he would have been there for it as well. And it made me think, I think the last game he saw was the FA Cup final against City, which I remember him messaging me after that saying he was in tears or he was really emotional, and that was what Manchester United are, and that's what Manchester United is. And he felt really proud of them on that day. I kind of had that feeling again today about the players and the team and just the approach in general. So, yeah, it was brilliant. And I'm sure he's watching on and he absolutely would have loved that. I have no doubt about it. But yeah, thanks to those of you guys that have reached out and mentioned that. But I wanted to mention that as well. Yeah, man, like, it's a brilliant day, really good day. And I'm not saying it's going to continue forever, but I'm hoping that there's something more to believe in here. And look, this doesn't completely remove all of the other conversations that we have about the direction that the club is going in and all the concerns that we had a few days ago. You still have to, I think you have to be constructive about them, but you do still have to acknowledge that they're there, and I will continue to talk about those issues and that kind of thing and express my approach to this. But the foundation of everything is what the team do and what the approach is and what the performances are like and how you can identify with them. And I think United did a brilliant job of that today. So look, enjoy your weekend, your week. And look, Arsenal just looks, it's going to be tough, but if United put that foot forward again, they got a chance. It's always nice to win the derby as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this pod has been fun for you. I've had a great day. It's been really, really good. Enjoy. Go and watch the game again. I'm gonna watch the highlights over and over. It's one of those, but I'll wrap up this podcast now and probably go and do that in a second. So thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching as well. If you've been watching on YouTube or on Spotify, all the links are in the description. Please get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about this. Like the video, 5-star reviews and all of that kind of stuff as well would be really, really appreciated. And follow me on social at @_Scott Saunders on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. Manchester United 2, Manchester City 0. And it should have been a hell of a lot more. Have a great day. See you soon.